Commander stood at the window of her office, looking out at the training grounds below. Her forearms were crossed behind her back, and her crystalline skin caught the light of Prime's twin suns. She had been an instructor at the Galactic Coalition Military Academy for 40 years. In all that time, she had trained warriors from 17 different species. Every single one of her students had earned their place among the stars. Today, that record was about to be tested. The door chimed, turned and called out permission to enter. The human walked in. He was short by galactic standards, barely reaching her shoulder. His skin was smooth, without scales or armor plating. No claws extended from his fingers. No second set of eyes gave him enhanced vision. He looked soft, weak, breakable. "Captain of Earth, reporting for training, Commander," the human said. His voice was calm and steady. Looked him over with all three of her eyes. She had read the file about Earth, a small planet with weak gravity. The humans had only just discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. They were infants in the galactic community. The Council had accepted their petition to join the coalition, but thought it was a mistake. How could such fragile creatures survive real combat? "I have trained who can crush metal with their bare hands," said. "I have trained warriors who move faster than most species can see. I have trained who can kill with thought alone. Tell me, Captain, what makes you think you belong here?" The human met her gaze without flinching. "I don't know if I belong, Commander. That's why I'm here, to find out." Made a sound that was close to a laugh. At least the human was honest. "You will be training with 4 other students. They are all from established coalition species. They have natural advantages you do not possess. This program has a 60% failure rate. Most students who fail do so in the first month. I expect you will request transfer to a support role within 2 weeks." "Respectfully, Commander, I don't plan on failing," said. "No one plans on failing, Captain, yet they do." Moved to her desk and pulled up a holographic display. "Your cohort includes of the Empire. His species has bones 3 times denser than yours. His strength is approximately 4 times that of an average human. You also will train alongside Morphia, a scout. Her reaction time is 0.3 seconds faster than human standard. Then there is a telepath who can sense intent before action. And finally, a like myself." "How do you expect to compete?" Thought for a moment before answering. "I don't expect to compete, Commander. I expect to learn, and then I expect to pass your training." Studied him again. Either this human was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, perhaps both. "Very well. Your first session begins at dawn tomorrow. Quarters have been assigned to you in Building 7. Dismissed." Saluted in the human way, one hand to his forehead and left. When he was gone, pulled up the human's file again. "Captain, age 32. Special Forces operator from the Korean Peninsula region of Earth. Multiple combat deployments. Decorations for valor." The file was impressive for a human military, but this was the Galactic Coalition. These were warriors who had fought in real wars across the stars, not the small conflicts humans had with each other on their single planet. She closed the file and prepared for the next day's training. She would give the human credit for trying, at least. The next morning came quickly, arrived at the training ground before dawn. The 4 non-human students were already there, towered over everyone, his scales gleaming red in the dim light. Morpheus' 6 legs tapped impatiently on the ground, stood perfectly still, his large eyes watching everything. The other nodded respectfully too. They waited. The human was late. Was about to mark him absent when came running around the corner. He was breathing hard but not gasping. He joined the formation without a word. "You're late," said coldly. "Yes, Commander, I apologize. I was unfamiliar with the base layout." "Unfamiliarity is not an excuse. It is your responsibility to know where you need to be. Drop and give me 50 push-ups." Immediately dropped to the ground and began. The other students watched. Push-ups were a human exercise, but the concept was universal. Physical punishment for failure. Completed all 50 without stopping. When he stood back up, there was sweat on his forehead, but he showed no other sign of effort. "Now we begin," said. "Today's exercise is simple. You will run the perimeter of this training ground, 50 kilometers. You will carry a standard field pack weighing 20 kilograms. The course includes hills, water obstacles, and rough terrain. You have 8 hours to complete it. If you finish, you eat. If you don't finish, you don't eat. Begin." The students took off, loped ahead with his powerful legs. Morphia scuttled forward on her 6 limbs with amazing speed, moved with smooth, efficient strides, kept a steady pace, and ran behind them all. Watch from her observation vehicle as it followed the students along the course. By the 10-kilometer mark, the pattern was clear, was in the lead, using his raw strength to power through. Morphia was second, her multiple legs giving her stability on rough ground. The others were clustered together, and was last, falling further behind with each kilometer. This was what I'd expected. Humans simply didn't have the physical capability to compete. But something was odd, wasn't slowing down. He kept the same steady pace, kilometer after kilometer. His breathing was controlled. His steps were even. While the other students started to show signs of fatigue around the 20-kilometer mark, the human looked exactly the same as when he started. By 30 kilometers had slowed considerably. His powerful body required more energy, and he was burning through it fast. Morphia was still moving well, but even she had reduced her speed, was breathing heavily, was maintaining form, but her movements were becoming mechanical, and was still running with that same steady, unchanging pace. At 40 kilometers, stopped to rest. He would still finish, but he needed recovery time. Morphia pushed on but was visibly tired. The human was no longer in last place. When the final results came in, finished first at 6 hours and 12 minutes. Morphia was second, third, crossed the finish line fourth at 7 hours and 8 minutes, came in last just under the 8-hour limit. Stood at the finish line, watching. The human was tired, certainly, but he wasn't broken. He stood straight, controlled his breathing, and waited for orders. "Adequate performance," Captain said. "You may eat." "Thank you, Commander." As the students walked to the dining facility, remained behind. She pulled up the biometric data from Suit. What she saw disturbed her. The human's heart rate had been elevated the entire time. His body temperature had risen significantly. His muscles had been working at near maximum capacity for over 7 hours. By all reasonable standards, he should have collapsed. But he hadn't. Looked at the data for another long moment. Then she closed the file and made a note in her personal log. Perhaps the human would last longer than 2 weeks after all. The second week of training focused on close-quarters combat. Stood at the edge of the training ring, watching her students prepare. This was where most species showed their true nature. Combat was primal. It revealed what a warrior was made of. Humans had no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no armored skin. Expected Captain to struggle badly in this phase. She had seen his performance in the endurance run. It was impressive, yes, but endurance alone did not win fights. Combat required strength, speed, and natural advantages. The human had none of these things. "Today's exercise is simple," announced to the group. "You will enter the ring. You will face 3 opponents. You must survive for 10 minutes. You do not need to win. You only need to remain conscious and mobile. Most warriors last 5 minutes. If you last the full 10, you pass this test." Went first. The massive entered the ring and faced his 3 opponents. The fight was brutal and quick. Used his superior strength to throw one opponent across the ring. His thick scales absorbed hits that would have broken bones in other species. He lasted 8 minutes before being overwhelmed by coordinated attacks. Still, it was a good performance. Morphia went next. They used her speed to avoid attacks, striking quickly with her sharp mandibles. She moved like flowing water, never staying in one place. She lasted 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Excellent. Used his telepathy to predict attacks before they came. He dodged and countered with precision. 10 minutes exactly. Perfect score. Fought with the disciplined technique of a trained warrior. Her four arms allowed her to defend and attack simultaneously. 9 minutes and 15 seconds. Very good. Then it was turn. The human walked into the ring. He wore the standard training armor, but it looked thin on his frame. His three opponents were all experienced fighters. Instructor, they would not be gentle. The fight began. On attacked first, moving fast for his size. His clawed hand struck in the chest, sending the human stumbling backward. Was there immediately, her leg striking side. The sound of the impact echoed across the training ground. Went down to one knee. "Stand up, Captain," called out. "Time continues." Stood, there was already blood on his lip. Struck him from behind with two of her arms. Fell forward. He rolled, avoiding on stomp, and got back to his feet. 1 minute had passed. The pattern continued. The three instructors attacked relentlessly. They were not trying to kill, but they were not holding back either. Was struck again and again. His nose broke with an audible crack. Blood poured down his face. He wiped it away with his sleeve and kept moving. At 3 minutes, noticed something. Was not trying to win. He was not even trying to fight back most of the time. He was just trying to survive. He blocked some attacks. He dodged others. When he was hit, he rolled with the impact to reduce damage. And he never stopped moving. At 5 minutes, his left arm hung at an odd angle. Dislocated shoulder. Most species would quit at this point. The pain alone would be too much. Was about to call the match when did something that made her blood run cold. He backed into a corner, put his good arm against the wall, and slammed his body sideways. There was a pop. The shoulder went back into place. His face showed pain for just a moment. Then it was gone. He raised both arms and continued fighting. The crowd of watching students went silent. At 7 minutes, Strike broke one of his fingers. The human made a small sound but didn't stop. He couldn't use that hand properly anymore, so he adjusted. He fought differently, using his other hand more, using kicks, using his elbows. At 8 minutes, On's claw opened a long cut across his ribs. Blood soaked through the training armor. Glanced down at the wound, seemed to judge that it wasn't immediately fatal, and kept fighting. Had trained hundreds of warriors. She had never seen anything like this. The human was obviously in pain, obviously injured, but he showed no sign of stopping. His body was damaged, but his will was untouched. At 9 minutes, all three instructors attacked together. They drove to the ground. He covered his head with his arms and took the hits. His body jerked with each impact. Put her hand on the emergency stop button. This had gone far enough. But then moved. While still on the ground, he swept his leg out and caught off balance. She stumbled, rolled away, got to his feet once more. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds. His breathing was harsh, but he was standing. Time called out, 10 minutes. The fighting stopped immediately. The three instructors stepped back. They looked at each other, then at. The human swayed slightly but remained upright. Medical staff rushed into the ring, waved them off with his good hand. "I can walk," he said. His voice was steady despite everything. "You will receive medical attention now, Captain," said firmly. "That is an order." "Yes, Commander." As the medical staff led away, approached her three instructors. "Your assessment?" she asked quietly. On spoke first. "His technique is crude. His strength is below average. His speed is nothing special." But prompted. "But he doesn't stop," said. "I broke his finger. He just adjusted and kept fighting." "I hit him at least 30 times, added. "Hits that would have knocked out most species. He felt every one of them. I could see it in his face. But he got back up every single time." Nodded slowly. "I need to see the human's medical file, all of it." Later that evening, sat in her office reviewing the documents. What she found explained much but disturbed her more. Human biology was strange. They had pain receptors throughout their body. They felt pain acutely, but unlike most species, they had no automatic shutdown mechanism for non-fatal injuries. A who took enough damage would lose consciousness as a survival mechanism. Us body would force rest after significant trauma, even had limits programmed into their nervous systems. Humans did not. They could feel pain, acknowledge pain, and then choose to ignore it. Their brain could override their body's distress signals. They could force themselves to continue functioning with broken bones, torn muscles, and serious wounds. They would only stop when they were physically unable to move or when they chose to stop. The choice part was what disturbed most. It meant that humans could decide to keep fighting even when their body was screaming at them to quit. It was not that they were immune to pain. It was that they could feel all of it and do nothing about it. There was a knock at her door. "Enter," she called. Captain walked in. His face was bandaged. His arm was in a sling. He moved carefully, favoring his injured ribs, but he was here less than 6 hours after the fight. "You should be in medical," said. "The doctors cleared me for light duty, Commander. I came to ask about tomorrow's training schedule." Stared at him. "You're injured, Captain. You will take at least 3 days to recover." "With respect, Commander, I heal faster if I stay active, and I don't want to fall behind the training schedule." "You lasted 10 minutes against 3 trained instructors while sustaining multiple injuries. You are not behind schedule." "Seem to consider this. Did I pass the test, Commander?" "Yes, Captain, you passed." "Then I'd like to continue with regular training tomorrow if possible." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she accessed her terminal and brought up the schedule. "Tomorrow is weapons training. You will participate in observation only, no physical activity. The day after, if medical clears you, you may resume full training." "Thank you, Commander." "Captain, one question before you go." "Yes, Commander." "When your shoulder was dislocated, why didn't you yield? The exercise was about survival, not victory. You could have stopped." Thought about his answer. "Stopping wasn't an option I considered, Commander. In real combat, the enemy doesn't care if you're hurt. They don't give you time to recover. The only way to survive is to keep moving no matter what. That's what I trained for back home. That's what I'll train for here." After left, sat in the darkness of her office for a long time. She thought about what she had seen today. The human had not been the strongest, not the fastest, not the most skilled, but he had passed the test through sheer determination and an almost disturbing tolerance for suffering. She pulled up the roster for the next phase of training. Survival training on the moon of. It was meant to be the hardest test in the entire program. Students were dropped alone in hostile territory and had to survive for 5 days against the environment and native predators. Had assumed would fail that test if he made it that far. Now she was not so sure. The human's refusal to quit, his ability to endure pain, his stubborn determination, these were exactly the traits needed for survival in the worst conditions. She made a note in her file. Recommend close observation of human student during survival training. Subject displays unusual ability to continue functioning despite significant injury and pain. Assessment: potentially dangerous in extended survival situations. Dangerous. Yes, that was the right word. Not dangerous to others, though that might also be true. Dangerous in that he might not know when to quit. Dangerous in that he might push himself too far and actually die out there. Decided she would monitor the survival test personally. She had never lost a student to death, and she was not going to start with the human, even if he didn't seem to understand the concept of giving up. The transport ship descended toward the moon of. Inside, 5 students prepared for the survival test. Each one checked their equipment in silence. They had been given standard survival packs containing basic tools, water purification tablets, an emergency beacon, and 3 days of rations. The test would last 5 days. Figuring out how to get the extra food was part of the challenge. Stood at the front of the cargo bay. You will be dropped in separate locations across the northern hemisphere. The terrain is rocky with limited vegetation. Water sources exist but must be located. The native wildlife is dangerous. Your objective is simple: survive for 5 days, then activate your beacon for extraction. Stay alive. That is all. She looked at each student in turn, appeared confident. Morphia was checking her equipment for the third time, sat in meditation, reviewed maps on her data pad, and was sitting quietly, his eyes closed, resting. Smart. One more thing, added. This moon is home to the Void Stalker. It is an apex predator, 3 meters tall, 4 meters long, equipped with thermal vision and exceptional hearing. It has killed 16 coalition soldiers in the past decade. If you encounter one, your orders are to retreat immediately and activate your emergency beacon. Do not attempt to fight it. Is this understood? All 5 students acknowledged. The drops went smoothly. Each student was deposited in their zone and the transport left, returned to the monitoring station in orbit. From here, she could track each student's beacon and vital signs. She settled in for 5 days of observation. The first day passed without major incident. All 5 students found shelter and water, located a cave system. Morphia built a shelter in a cluster of rocks, found a narrow canyon with good defensive positions, climbed to higher ground with clear sight lines, and found an overhang near a small stream. By the second day, they had each begun hunting for food to supplement their rations. This was expected. Caught something similar to a lizard. Morphia found edible plants, used his telepathy to stun small prey, set traps using her equipment, spent most of the second day not hunting but preparing something. The satellite images were not clear enough to show what. On the third day at dawn, beacon went dark. Was on her feet immediately. She checked the system. No signal, no vitals. Either his equipment had failed or something had happened to him. She activated the emergency protocols and dispatched a search team. It would take them 4 hours to reach his last known location. She watched the clock and tried not to think about the Void Stalker. The creature's territory included the zone where it had been dropped. If it had found him, his lack of training with the local threats could have been fatal. Pulled up the human's file again. Captain, 32 years old, survived combat on Earth, passed endurance tests, passed close combat certification. She had started to believe he might actually graduate. And now he might be dead. The search team landed at his last position. They found his shelter. His pack was there, carefully hidden. His beacon was there too, deliberately deactivated, but no sign of himself. They spread out, searching the area. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Then someone found the blood. A lot of blood, dark blue, not red, not human blood. A trail led away from the stream into the rocks. The team followed carefully, weapons ready. The trail continued for half a kilometer before they found it. The Void Stalker was dead. It lay in a narrow passage between 2 rock formations. Its throat had been cut. Its belly had been opened. And sitting nearby, covered in the creature's blue blood, was Captain. He was eating cooked meat over a small fire. When he saw the search team, he stood up slowly and raised his hands. "I'm fine," he called out. "Sorry about the beacon. Didn't want to lead anything to my position with an active signal." The team leader, Instructor, approached carefully. He looked at the dead Void Stalker, then back at the Stalker. "You killed it?" "Yes, sir." "How?" Gestured to the narrow passage. "I tracked it yesterday, found its territory. It's a solitary hunter, always travels the same paths. I found this choke point and set a trap. Used my equipment cord as a snare. When it came through, the snare caught its leg. That slowed it down enough for me to get close. I used a sharpened rock to cut its throat." Examined the scene. The trap was crude but effective. The snare had been positioned perfectly. The rock had used as a weapon was still there, covered in blood. It had been shaped into a rough blade. "This creature has killed trained soldiers." "Yes, sir, but they probably tried to fight it in open ground where it has every advantage. Here, in a confined space, it couldn't maneuver, and I had the element of surprise. You were ordered to retreat if you encountered it. Yes, sir, but I thought about that order. If I retreated and activated my beacon, someone would have to come extract me. That would put the extraction team at risk from the same creature, and the Void Stalker would still be out here, threatening the next group of students who train on this moon. So I made a decision. Better to handle the threat now while I knew where it was. Heard all of this through the communication system. She leaned back in her chair and closed all three eyes. The human had not only survived, he had hunted and killed the most dangerous predator on the moon, using rocks and cord. And his reasoning was sound, which made it even more troubling. He had violated orders, yes, but for logical, tactical reasons. The beacon, On said. Why deactivate it completely? You could have simply turned off the active signal. If I left it on passive mode, it still emits a trace signature. Some predators on Earth can sense electromagnetic fields. I didn't know if the Void Stalker could, so I eliminated the risk completely. I kept track of the days. I was going to reactivate it on day 5 for extraction as ordered. You're on day 3, Captain. Yes, sir, so I have 2 more days. The Stalker's meat is edible after cooking. I've been testing it. No adverse reactions so far. I have enough food now to last the remaining time easily. On looked at for a long moment. You realize this is the kind of action that gets soldiers either promoted or court-martialed. I'm aware, sir. I'll accept whatever consequences Commander deems appropriate. Reactivate your beacon. We're extracting you now. Sir, respectfully, the test is 5 days. I've completed 3. I request permission to finish the test properly. That is not your decision to make, Captain. Through the communication link spoke. Instructor On, have the captain reactivate his beacon but leave him there. If he wants to complete the full 5 days, he may do so. The Void Stalker is no longer a threat. There's no reason to cut his test short. On looked surprised but nodded. You heard the commander, Captain. Reactivate your beacon and continue your test. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. The search team left, returned to his fire and his meal, watched his vital signs stabilize on her monitor. His heart rate was normal. His temperature was normal. He was completely calm. He had just killed a creature that had terrorized this moon for years, and he was sitting there eating it like it was a routine task. The other instructors gathered in the monitoring station. They had all seen the reports and the images. The human killed a Void Stalker with a rock, said. She sounded like she didn't quite believe it. He didn't fight it directly, pointed out. He studied it, learned its patterns, prepared a trap, used the terrain. That shows intelligence and tactical thinking. It also shows he's insane, On rumbled. Who hunts an apex predator during a survival test? Someone who thinks ahead, said quietly. He calculated the risks, not just to himself but to future soldiers who might encounter that creature. He determined that eliminating the threat was worth the risk. He violated orders, said. Yes, he did. Pulled up the regulations on her screen, which means I need to decide how to handle this. On one hand, he disobeyed a direct order. On the other hand, his actions were tactically sound and eliminated a significant threat. What will you do? Asked. Thought about it. She thought about the human who ran for 7 hours without stopping, who fought for 10 minutes with broken bones, who now had hunted and killed a Void Stalker with primitive weapons. She thought about what it meant. Humans were not stronger or faster or tougher than other species, but they were something else, something that didn't fit into any category she understood. They were persistent, relentless. They saw problems and eliminated them. They calculated risks that would make other species retreat, and they moved forward anyway. They adapted. They used their minds to overcome their physical limitations. And most importantly, they thought about the long term, had not just been thinking about his own survival. He had been thinking about the next group of students, the next soldiers, people he had never met and might never meet. I will wait until he completes the test, decided. Then I will have a conversation with Captain about following orders, but I will also note in his file that his tactical judgment was sound and his actions resulted in a significant benefit to Coalition forces. The Void Stalker has been a threat for 10 years. That threat is now eliminated. You're going to let him pass? On asked. If he survives the remaining 2 days, yes, he will pass. Because despite his violation of orders, he demonstrated exactly the kind of thinking we need in Coalition soldiers. He saw a threat, he assessed it, he prepared, and he eliminated it using limited resources and tactical superiority. That is what we train warriors to do. The 2 days passed slowly, remained at his camp. He ate the stalker's meat. He maintained his shelter. He appeared to be cataloging the local plants, taking samples and notes. On day 5, exactly at the time extraction was scheduled, he activated his beacon. The transport picked him up. He returned his equipment, filed a brief report, and stood at attention while waiting for to speak. You violated a direct order, Captain said. Yes, Commander. You endangered yourself unnecessarily. I calculated the risk, Commander. I believed it was acceptable. You made that decision alone, without authorization. Yes, Commander. Looked at him. The human met her gaze steadily. He was not apologizing. He was not making excuses. He was simply acknowledging what he had done and waiting for consequences. You passed the survival test, said finally. Your mark is excellent. However, your violation of orders will be noted in your file. If you pull something like this again without consultation, there will be serious consequences. Is that understood? Yes, Commander, understood. You're dismissed, Captain. As left, added one more note to his file. Human student displays high levels of tactical thinking and problem-solving ability. Also displays tendency to prioritize mission success over personal safety and establish protocols. Recommend close supervision during team exercises. She had a feeling that the next phase of training would be very interesting indeed. The final test was unlike anything that had come before. This was not about individual performance. This was about working as a team under impossible conditions. The wargame simulation had been designed to be unwinnable. It tested how warriors handled defeat with grace and dignity. Stood before the 2 teams, 5 defenders, 10 attackers. The defenders would hold a fortress on the northern continent of Moon for 72 hours. The attackers, led by experienced instructors, would have superior numbers, better equipment, and air support. The defenders were expected to last perhaps 24 hours before being overrun. Your defense team consists of the following, announced. Captain Human, Cadet Nam Human, and Cadet Sung Ho Human. 3 humans on 1 team. This was intentional, wanted to see how they worked together. The second human, Nam, had arrived in a later cohort. She was a combat medic with excellent marks. The third human, Sung Ho, was a communications specialist. Both had shown the same strange endurance that displayed. The attacking force will consist of myself and 9 other instructors, continued. We will attack at intervals of our choosing. You may use any defensive strategies you deem appropriate within the rules of engagement. No lethal force. No permanent harm to participants. Begin preparation now. The simulation starts at dawn. The teams dispersed. The attackers went to their staging area to plan. The defenders moved to their fortress. It was a real structure built for training. 2 stories, thick walls, multiple defensive positions. It had supplies for 5 people for 3 days, barely enough. Expected the defenders to organize according to rank or species. Usually, the strongest or most experienced warrior took charge, was the obvious choice. He was powerful and had performed well throughout training. But that was not what happened. Within 10 minutes of entering the fortress, had called the team together. He did not ask if he could lead. He did not discuss it. He simply started giving orders in a calm, clear voice, and the others followed. Watch this through the surveillance system. Interesting. I need you on the west wall, said. It's the most likely approach for a direct assault. Your strength and armor make you best suited for holding that position. Agreed, said. You'll rotate between positions. Use your telepathy to give us advance warning of attacks. You're our early warning system. I understand. You're our medic, so you stay mobile and central. Anyone gets hurt, you respond immediately. But you're also trained in combat, so if we're being overrun, you fight. Got it, said. She was checking medical supplies as she spoke. Sung-Ho, you handle communications and surveillance. Monitor their radio chatter if possible. Track their movements. Information is our biggest weapon. On it, Sung-Ho said. Looked around the fortress. We have 3 days of food and water. The test lasts 3 days. If we ration carefully, we're fine. But we need to assume they'll try to cut our supply lines or prevent us from sleeping. We rotate watch shifts. No one pulls more than 4 hours at a time. We need everyone alert and rested. That gives us limited coverage, pointed out. Yes, but exhausted defenders are useless defenders. We work in shifts. 4 hours on watch, 4 hours on standby, 4 hours rest. Cycle repeats. I'll take the first watch with. The rest of you get sleep now while you can. Noted this decision. Most commanders tried to maximize coverage by keeping everyone awake as long as possible. Was doing the opposite. He was prioritizing rest. It was smart. Tired soldiers made mistakes. The first attack came at dawn as expected, led the assault from the east. It was a probing attack meant to test the defenses. They were repelled within 30 minutes. No major damage to either side. But something was odd. During the attack, heard music, loud music, playing from speakers the defenders had set up. It was earth music, something with a heavy beat and aggressive lyrics. It was distracting, annoying, designed to disrupt concentration. After the first attack, retreated to plan the next assault, but the music did not stop. It played continuously, loud enough to hear from the attacker's camp. She tried to ignore it. After 2 hours, she realized she could not. The constant noise was making it hard to think, hard to rest. The other instructors were complaining. Psychological warfare, Instructor said with something like admiration. The human is using noise to disrupt our rest cycles. It's crude, said, covering her audio receptors. Crude but effective, admitted. She had not expected this. Most species considered such tactics beneath them, but humans apparently had no such compunctions. The second attack came 6 hours later, brought more force this time. They hit the fortress from 2 directions simultaneously. The defense held, but barely. Took a hard hit that would have injured a lesser warrior. Was there immediately, treating the wound. The defense team rotated as planned, fresh defenders replacing tired ones. The attackers retreated again. The music continued. By the first night, realized they were in trouble. The plan had been to overwhelm the fortress with sustained pressure, but the defenders were not being worn down as expected. They rested in shifts. They rotated positions. They maintained their energy. And that cursed music kept playing, preventing the attackers from getting proper rest. At 30 hours, launched a major assault. All 10 instructors attacked together. They breached the outer wall. They pushed into the courtyard. Victory seemed certain. Then the traps activated. Had spent the first day setting traps using their equipment, trip wires, collapsing barriers, crude made from training munitions. Nothing lethal but extremely disorienting. 3 instructors went down immediately. The others pressed forward. They fought room by room. The defenders gave ground slowly, making the attackers work for every meter. Held a doorway alone for 5 minutes against 3 opponents. Used his telepathy to coordinate the defense perfectly. Sung-Ho called out attacker positions from his surveillance post. treated injuries while also fighting, and was everywhere, moving between positions, adjusting strategy, always calm. After 2 hours, called a retreat, they had penetrated the fortress but could not hold their position. The defenders had retaken the ground. The attackers had taken more damage than they had inflicted. 48 hours, the fortress still stood. Gathered her instructors. They were tired. The constant music had prevented proper sleep. The defenders' rotation system meant they were always facing fresh opponents, and the traps had taken a psychological toll. Everyone was being more cautious now, which slowed the attacks. "We need a new strategy," said. "We hit them with everything at once," An suggested. "Overwhelming force, no holding back." "They've survived overwhelming force. They adapt too quickly." "The humans are the key," said. "Captain is coordinating everything. If we take him out, the defense will collapse." Considered this. It was true that was the center of the defense, but there was something about that strategy that bothered her. It felt like admitting that the human was the most dangerous opponent, that a single human was more threatening than or any other species. But the facts supported it. Was not the strongest, not the fastest, but he was the leader. He was the one keeping the defense together. "Next attack, we focus on Captain," decided. "Remove him from the fight and the rest will follow." The final assault came at 60 hours, led the attack personally. They hit the fortress with everything. The goal was simple: get to and take him out of the fight. They found him on the second floor, coordinating the defense, and 2 other instructors engaged him directly. Fought well, but he was outnumbered. They backed him into a corner. This was it. The simulation would be over soon. Then appeared from nowhere. She hit from the side with a tackle that would have done credit to the other human fought with the same relentless style as. She took hits that should have dropped her. She kept fighting. She gave time to recover. Sung Ho arrived next. Then, the entire defense team converged to protect their leader. They fought together with perfect coordination and realized something important. This was not about alone. Yes, he was the leader, but the team followed him because he had built something: trust, unity, purpose. They had become more than 5 individuals. They had become a team. Called retreat. The attackers, 70 hours had passed. Just 2 hours remained. Back at the staging area, looked at her instructors. They were exhausted, frustrated. They had thrown everything at that fortress and failed to take it. The defenders had held, against all odds, against superior numbers and equipment. They had held. "We have 2 hours left," said. "Do we attack again?" Silence, then An spoke. "What is the point, Commander? We have attacked 6 times. Each time they adapt, each time they hold. They will last the final 2 hours. We all know this." Looked at the fortress in the distance. "We attack once more, not to win, but to see how they finish." The final attack was half-hearted. Everyone knew how it would end. The defenders repelled them again. When the 72-hour mark hit, called the simulation over. She entered the fortress to find the 5 defenders standing at attention. They were exhausted, covered in bruises and minor injuries. Their supplies were gone, but they were standing, all 5 of them, alert, ready to continue if needed. Stood at the front, approached him. "Report, Captain." "Fortress held, Commander. All defensive objectives achieved. All team members accounted for and functional." "Your strategy was unconventional." "Yes, Commander, but effective." Looked at the other defenders. Who had learned to trust human leadership despite his superior strength. Who had worked seamlessly with warriors who had no telepathy. And Sung Ho, who had shown the same impossible endurance as. "You understand this test was designed to be unwinnable," said. "I suspected as much, Commander, but unwinnable depends on your definition of victory. Our objective was to hold for 72 hours. We held for 72 hours. By that definition, we won." Felt something she rarely felt. She felt that she had been outthought, outplanned. beaten not by strength or speed or special abilities but by pure tactical thinking and refusal to accept defeat. "The test is complete," said. "You are all dismissed. Get medical attention and rest. Well done." As the team remained in the fortress. She looked around at the defensive positions, the traps, the careful planning evident in every detail. She thought about everything she had witnessed. The humans had changed how her students thought about combat. They had shown that victory was not about individual power. It was about working together, planning ahead, never giving up. She pulled up her command tablet and wrote a formal report. War game simulation results. Defense team achieved primary objective. Fortress held for full duration. Recommendation: tactical doctrine review needed. Human warfare philosophy shows merit for coalition adoption. Then she added a personal note. "I have trained warriors for 40 years. I have never seen anything like what I witnessed in this simulation. The humans did not win through superior strength. They won through superior will. This may be the most dangerous trait any species can possess." The Grand Hall of the Galactic Coalition Military Academy was filled with light and ceremony. Representatives from 17 different species had gathered to witness the graduation of the latest class. 37 students stood in formation, wearing their formal uniforms. They had started as 53. The others had failed or transferred to different programs. This was normal. The academy was meant to be difficult. Stood at the podium looking out at the assembled crowd. Her forearms were folded in the traditional posture of formal address. She had given this graduation speech 40 times over her career. She knew the words by heart: honor, duty, service, the pride of the coalition, the strength of unity. But today, she was going to say something different. Her eyes found Captain in the formation. He stood between, and his posture perfect, his gaze forward. In the months since the war game simulation, he had completed every remaining requirement with the same quiet efficiency he had shown from the beginning. He had not been the top student in any single category, but he had passed everything. More importantly, he had changed how the other students thought about combat. Began her speech with the traditional opening. She spoke about the honor of service, about the coalition's mission to maintain peace across the galaxy, about the responsibility these new graduates were accepting. The crowd listened politely. This was the expected part. Then paused. She looked down at her prepared speech and made a decision. She set it aside. "I have been an instructor at this academy for 40 years, she said. "In that time, I have trained warriors from 17 different species. I have seen incredible displays of strength, speed, and skill. I have watched students push themselves to their absolute limits and beyond. I thought I understood what it meant to be a warrior. I thought I understood what made someone qualified to serve in the coalition military." She paused. The hall was completely silent now. This was not the standard speech. "This year I was assigned my first human student, Captain of Earth. When he arrived, I was dismissive. Humans are small. They have no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced senses. There has weak gravity. By every physical measure we use to assess warrior potential, humans should not be here." Remained at attention, but could see the slight tension in his shoulders. The other humans in the formation, and Sung Ho, were equally still. "I gave Captain 2 weeks before he would request transfer to a support role. I was wrong. Not just wrong in my timeline, but wrong in my entire assessment of what makes a warrior. Because humans are not warriors. Not in the way the galaxy understands that word." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Raised one hand for silence. "Let me explain. Warriors fight for honor, for glory, for personal achievement. Warriors test themselves against worthy opponents. Warriors seek to prove their individual strength. This is how most species approach combat. This is what I have taught for 40 years. But humans do not fight like this. Humans are soldiers, and there is a critical difference." Pulled up a holographic display showing data from the training exercises. In the endurance run, Captain ran for over 7 hours without stopping. His body was operating at near maximum capacity the entire time. By all reasonable biological standards, he should have collapsed, but he did not, because humans can override their body's distress signals. They can feel pain, acknowledge it, and continue anyway. She changed the display to show the combat test. In close-quarters combat, Captain sustained a dislocated shoulder, a broken finger, and multiple lacerations. Any of these injuries would cause most species to stop fighting. He popped his shoulder back into place and continued, because humans do not have automatic shutdown mechanisms for non-lethal injuries. They simply refuse to stop. The crowd was completely focused now. Even the other instructors who had seen these events firsthand were listening intently. In the survival test, Captain hunted and killed a Void Stalker, a creature that has killed 16 trained Coalition soldiers. He did this using primitive weapons and tactical planning. When I asked why he did not retreat as ordered, his answer was revealing. He said that retreating would put the extraction team at risk. He thought about soldiers he had never met. He eliminated a threat for people who would come after him. Looked directly at now. This is what makes humans dangerous, not their strength, not their speed, but their absolute refusal to quit, their tendency to think about the group before themselves, their willingness to endure any amount of suffering to complete a mission or protect their team. He changed the display again, showing footage from the war game simulation. The final test was designed to be unwinnable, a defensive exercise against overwhelming odds. The defenders were expected to last 24 hours before surrendering with honor. Captain's team lasted the full 72 hours. They did this through psychological warfare, trap setting, shift rotations, and perfect coordination. They did this because Captain built a team, not a group of individual warriors, but a true team. The footage showed the final moments of the simulation. The 5 defenders standing together, protecting each other, refusing to break. I attacked Captain directly, continued. I thought if I removed the leader, the defense would collapse. I was wrong again. His entire team converged to protect him, not because they feared punishment if he fell, but because he had earned their loyalty. He had proven he would take the worst risks himself. He would go without sleep so they could rest. He would stand in the most dangerous positions, and they repaid that loyalty. Deactivated the display. I stand before you today to say that I have learned more from teaching Captain than from any student in my entire career. He taught me that we have been measuring warrior potential by the wrong standards. Physical strength matters, but what matters more is the strength to continue when your body tells you to stop. The strength to think about your team before yourself. The strength to face impossible odds and simply refuse to accept defeat. She picked up a small case from the podium. Inside was the Coalition Star, the highest honor given to graduating students. It had not been awarded in 15 years. The requirements were extreme: outstanding performance, leadership, innovation, sacrifice. Captain front and center stepped forward smoothly and stood before. He saluted. For exceptional performance in all training categories, for leadership that inspired your fellow students, for tactical innovation that improved Coalition defensive doctrine, and for teaching this instructor that humanity's place in the Coalition is not a favor we granted, but a strength we desperately needed. I present you with the Coalition Star. Pinned the medal to his uniform. The hall erupted in applause. It was not polite ceremonial applause. It was genuine. The other students were cheering. The instructors were nodding approval. Even the representatives from the various species were showing respect. Saluted again and returned to formation, but was not finished. I said that humans are soldiers, not warriors. Let me explain what I mean by this. Warriors fight for personal glory. Soldiers fight for the person beside them. Warriors seek honorable combat. Soldiers seek to win by any means necessary. Warriors want worthy opponents. Soldiers want their opponents to surrender without a fight. Warriors are individuals who happen to work together. Soldiers are a team that functions as one. She looked across the entire graduating class. All of you came here as warriors from your respective cultures. That is good. That is honorable. But if you have learned anything from the humans in your class, I hope it is this. The Coalition does not need warriors. The Coalition needs soldiers. We need people who will fight not for glory, but for each other. We need people who will endure impossible hardships to complete a mission. We need people who will sacrifice themselves so their teammates can survive. This is what humanity brings to the Coalition. Not superior technology, not physical strength, but a philosophy of warfare that puts the team above the individual, that refuses to accept defeat. That fights not because victory brings glory, but because someone must fight and they refuse to let it be anyone else. Raised all four arms in the gesture of highest respect. You are all graduates now. You will serve the Coalition across the galaxy. When you face the darkness, and you will face it, remember what you learned here. Fight together, protect each other, never surrender, be soldiers. The ceremony concluded with the traditional oath. All 37 graduates recited it in perfect unison. Then they were released to celebrate with their families and supporters. Remained on the stage watching them go, approached her before leaving. He stopped and saluted one final time. Permission to speak, Commander. Granted, Captain, you are graduated now. You can speak freely. I wanted to thank you, Commander. When I arrived, I saw doubt in your eyes. You didn't think I belonged here, but you trained me anyway. You pushed me. You challenged me. You made me prove myself. That's all any soldier can ask for. Looked at him. I was wrong about you, Captain. I judged you by physical standards and missed what was truly important. The question is, what will you do now? Where will you serve? The human contingent is being assigned to Border Patrol in Sector 7. There have been reports of pirate activity. Nothing major, but someone needs to handle it. That is far from the core worlds. It will be dangerous work. Yes, Commander, that's why they're sending us. Humans are good at dangerous work. Almost smiled. Captain, one more question. How does your species survive, being so fragile yet so determined to throw yourselves into danger? Thought about his answer carefully. We survive because we refuse to let each other die alone, Commander. Death is inevitable. Every species knows this. But we choose how we face it. And we choose to face it together. If I die knowing that my team did everything possible to prevent it. And if they die knowing I did the same for them. That's not weakness. That's strength. I understand now, said. Go serve well, Captain. The Coalition is fortunate to have you. Thank you, Commander. Left to join his fellow humans. Watched them go. 3 humans laughing together, already planning their next assignment. They did not look like dangerous soldiers. They looked small and fragile and unremarkable. But knew better now. She had learned. Those 3 humans were more dangerous than any single warrior she had ever trained. Not because they were strong, but because they would never stop, never quit, never abandon each other. Later that evening, sat in her office filing her final reports. She noted exemplary performance. She noted the improvements to training doctrine that had resulted from studying human tactics. She noted the recommendation that more humans be admitted to future classes. Then she filed one more document, a transfer request. She was requesting assignment to Sector 7, to the same Border Patrol unit where the human contingent would serve. Her second-in-command, Instructor, found her the next morning. Commander, I saw your transfer request. Why are you leaving the academy? You have trained here for 40 years. This is your home. Because I have more to learn, said simply. Captain taught me that there is more to combat than what we teach here. I want to learn from humans in real situations, not training exercises, actual combat. You want to serve under human command. I want to serve beside humans. There is a difference. When the real threats emerge, and they always do, I want soldiers at my back, not warriors, soldiers. Looked at the transfer request again. The human captain changed you, Commander. Yes, he did. He showed me that the Coalition accepted humanity not as a favor to a weak species, but as a survival strategy. Because when darkness comes, you want humans on your side, not because they are the strongest or fastest or toughest, but because they will never stop fighting for you. They will endure any hardship, they will face any danger, and they will never ever leave you behind. 3 months later, arrived at the Border Patrol Station in Sector 7. Captain met her at the docking bay. He seemed surprised but pleased. "Commander, I didn't expect to see you here." "Captain, I am here to learn. You taught me much at the academy, but I suspect there is more to learn about how humans fight in real combat. I request permission to serve alongside your unit." Smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile. "Permission granted, Commander. Welcome to the team. I should warn you, though, we're not warriors here. We're just soldiers trying to do our job." "That said, is exactly why I came." She looked around at the small human contingent. They were preparing for their first patrol, checking weapons, reviewing intelligence, working together with the easy coordination of people who trusted each other completely. They were small. They were fragile. They had no natural advantages. But they had something more important. They had each other, and they would never quit. For the first time in 40 years, felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Not teaching warriors, but learning from soldiers. Learning what it truly meant to fight not for glory, but for the person standing beside you. The galaxy was dangerous. Threats lurked in every sector. Pirates, raiders, hostile species, unknown dangers waiting in the dark between stars. But humanity had joined the Coalition, and where humans fought, they fought together, they endured together, they survived together. And now would fight beside them, not as an instructor, not as a superior officer, but as a soldier, learning what it truly meant to never surrender, never quit, never leave anyone behind. The humans had taught her that, and she would spend the rest of her career making sure the galaxy understood it too.